behind you and your love in front of you, and you run like hell. He was arguably the most authentically himself human being I have ever known in my life. And it is one of the greatest honors of my existence that I got to be his friend. I have no words for how much I respect Harlan and for how much I love him. And how wonderful it is to be in a room full of people who feel the same. Thank you for an opportunity to speak my heart. I appreciate it.
Find many great new editions of Harlan's books, including Brave Movies, early short story collections, the wonderful entry point Harlan 101, and in 2016 he launched a very successful Kickstarter campaign to help fund the scanning of Harlan's entire body of work. Please welcome Harlan's editor and friend, Jason Davis. Body, just 30 seconds before we cut to you. I think before we go to this next photo, it really bears some explanation, so it doesn't just jar anybody.
20 seconds, yeah, this will freak you out. When Harlan and I wrote a TV show together called The Discarded, he had to get makeup applied because he played an alien, and we went to the makeup house, and this is him before he went in. Those are fake bodies from 6 feet under. We did not kill those people, I promise. But the first time Harlan looked at this photo, he said it should be called Josh and Harlan and 3 Who Opposed Them. But that one could not just come up without comment, because someone might have a heart attack. I apologize, please.
Well, now I have to follow that. My first meeting with well, let's leave aside the conventions and things like that. The first time I ever called Harlan's house, I was a journalist, and The Twilight Zone that Steve was just talking about had just come out on DVD, and I thought, oh, here's my chance to interview Harlan Ellison. So I called, and Susan answered, and she said he wasn't available, and that I should call back in 5 minutes. And so I called back, and he said, yeah! Because that's how he answered the phone. And I said, hi, Mr. Ellison, my name is Jason Davis. I'm working for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, and I would like to interview you about The Twilight Zone. And there was a pause. And he said, how much are you gonna pay me? And I said, well, I don't have anything to pay. Well, you know what? There's not gonna be an interview? Damn right. And I said, thank you for your time. I'm sorry to have disturbed you. He's like, well, you didn't disturb me. And then he talked to me for half an hour. But it wasn't an interview. So that was my first meeting with him, and then over the years, I appeared at things, and eventually I think Susan started to think I was a stalker. And then it came to pass that I ended up at the house because he had a friend visiting him who didn't drive. And I knew this friend from a convention. Someone was, that one is on. I thought that one wasn't on. I thought that one, yeah. Anyway, no green light. Anyway, so I went over to the house to pick up this friend of his. And in the course of that, he gave me the tour of the house and everything. And about a month or two later, a publisher I was working with said, I've just made a deal to publish some new Harlan Ellison books, and I want you to be the editor on them. And I said, oh, really? Have you told Harlan that? And she said, yeah, I told him it was a guy that came over to his house one time and picked somebody up who was visiting. And I was like, oh, well, it's good to see that you've loaded it up with confidence, that this is a competent person who can drive somebody from point A to point B, and so obviously he can handle editing some books. And I went over, and he yelled at me once or twice, very early on, but that was about it. And we've now done 16 books, well, sorry, 17 books. Bloods Are Over came out just before he passed. And that's probably my favorite memory, is the fact that the last time I saw him, I was there the same day that he got the first copy of Bloods Are Over, which, you know, has been in progress since before I was born. And we were able to put the pieces together here at the end, and that was the last thing he saw. But to me, the most important thing is Harlan tells a story about a writer named Clarence Buddington Kelland, who was very, very big in the 30s and 40s. He was in the Saturday Evening Post and things of that nature, and in all the magazines. And raise your hand if you've heard his name outside of Harlan Ellison mentioning him. Clarence Buddington Kelland.
Not outside of Harlan.
And Harlan says, in this essay where he mentions Clarence Buddington Kelland, that the man's gone, nobody reads his books anymore. He was the most popular writer of the 20s, 30s, somewhere in there. And the reason I did the Harlan Ellison Preservation Project, the reason I'm still over there at least once a week, irritating Susan, going through the files, is because we can't let writers like this slip away. All we have left is the words and the experiences. And if we don't have the words available, if they're not readily available, if they're not on Barnes & Noble shelves, because Barnes & Noble carries the top 10 books, and that's it. You know, anything else you gotta go to Amazon. Amazon's, you know, doing what Amazon's doing, however you feel about that. The books have to stay out there. The books have to live. The books have to be given to people. So I'm gonna say this. I want you all to go to harlanellisonbooks.com. He wouldn't let me, he wouldn't want me to not give the spiel. So go to harlanellisonbooks.com, and I'm gonna put up a discount code there. Buy a Harlan Ellison book for a friend who's never read Harlan Ellison. Give Harlan Ellison to somebody else, because that way he's gonna be out there forever. He'll be like Pope, he'll be like Dumas, and he'll be immortal. And that's pretty much all I have to say on that. So.
I know if I look in one of two directions, I'm going to see a stop sign, so I'm not going to look up, because I don't think it's a proper Harlan Ellison panel unless you break the rules a little bit. So I think we should keep going a little bit, right? So I really want to get to, I think Josh has a perfect capper for this panel, but before that, you know, I do want to invite all of you, if you have questions or comments, please come up to the mic and you know, say a piece quickly, and we can hopefully you know, do a little overtime as we, you know, continue on with Harlan. Oh, I think behind the microphone would be great. And I think if enough of you line up, we might encourage her to put the stop sign down for just a couple minutes.
Project.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Hello. I'm here as kind of a proxy for my boyfriend. We've been together for 30 years, and he's always been a really big, I don't want to say fan, because, I mean, we don't know the Ellisons, but Harlan has been his hero all his life. He has some, he would never come to Comic-Con because there's just too many people here. He hates people, he hates social occasions. But he hates them because he sees the greatness that humanity could be, and that we don't achieve it on a daily basis. And that's, from my information, that's almost exactly what Harlan tended to believe. I didn't know the man. We met him a few times. I'm a talker. My boyfriend is a quieter type. And Harlan, we went to the Dreams with Sharp Teeth showing in Hollywood. And he was on stage and he wanted questions. And the audience was silent. And he finally said, where are the questions? And I called out from where I was because I'm a talker. And I said, we're afraid of you. And he said, what? And he came off the stage, and we had spoken to him a little bit in the bookstore just before this. He came off the stage, sat next to my boyfriend, who was on the aisle, sat on the arm of the chair, hugged him, kissed him on the head, and said, this poor man has been with this woman for how long is it? I said 25. 25 years, this poor man. And I don't know if Harlan will ever know how important that was to my boyfriend, being that he was his hero all his life. We live in the San Fernando Valley, and for my boyfriend, it's like the protector of the San Fernando Valley from where he lives on his hill is now gone, and he doesn't know what to do about that. And he's been having a hard time with this. Like I said, he's getting through it. We'll get through it. And the thing is, we didn't have the relationship that you guys had with him. And we're having a hard time with it. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I realize we are completely abusing the cons patients here, so if I can just ask everybody to very quickly try to run through so we can not abuse people too much. I know it's been a long con week, and I thank you for the forbearance here.
Hey.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
So the first time that I met Harlan was back just after the release of Stalking the Nightmare, and same sort of thing, very courteous to me in a huge crowded situation and all that. And I had fallen in love with the old vinyl recording of On the Road, and which I was so in love with that he and I debated for a few minutes, both of us in his own voice. So years later, after listening to that album so often and exposing all of my friends to it, I had a roommate that reached out and asked, what the hell was that album that you would play all the time? Well, that roommate was Michael Reed at Deep Shag Records, who ultimately has released now going on 7 volumes of On the Road. And I was production designing a movie recently and on set and I was about 2 mouse clicks away. I was trying to work on the cover at the same time. About 2 mouse clicks away from finishing the art, the graphics for that final release for 7. And when Michael texted me that, oh shit, we just lost Harlan. So that was obviously heartbreaking, and I wish that I'd gotten it done and in even days earlier. But in any case, my first thing was to take my entire art team to lunch and sit them down and read them I Am the Locust, and inspire each one of them to go to HarlanEllisonBooks.com and start to explore them. And every one of them was so fascinated with the story every one of them has got and bought those things. Hopefully everybody here is familiar with I Am the Locust, but it's so much about sharing those stories, and I'm so happy that I stumbled upon this panel just as it was starting, and that everyone here is loving those stories as much as I am.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Just a few more minutes. Thank you very much for the patience, con people.
First time I saw Harlan Ellison was long before I got involved in science fiction fandom. I was 15 years old, and our teacher of science fiction literature took us to his home. She knew him, and I got to meet him and hear him talking in his own element and everything. And shortly after that, I read his book on Jewish science fiction. Since I was starting to own my Jewish heritage at that point, it was very important to me that science fiction and Judaism sort of combined there for me. Years later, one of my most powerful memories of Harlan is that he addressed a group of science fiction fans telling us he was mad about something they were doing with Babylon 5. They should do something different. He said, and he looked at all of us as though we were all one person that he was just talking to, and said, now don't call the studio. Don't write letters to the studio. I'll tell you when I want you to do something. He was beautiful. He made us all feel like he knew us well and was talking to us and just telling us something. My second husband had been in his 10 Tuesdays down a rabbit hole, which he taught in a college setting. And he has all kinds of videos and everything of Harlan, which maybe somebody should check about. But I got a lot more of anecdotes of him from that.
Great, thank you.
Beautiful.
Appreciate that, thank you.
I just want to thank everybody up on the panel and who has talked today and everybody who's here. I first met Harlan Ellison at one of the many book signings he gave at the Mystery and Imagination bookstore, where he would literally write books or write stories while he was signing books at the same time. And my husband, who couldn't be here today, is very much like Harlan, and so I have a kind of a kinship with Susan because he treats me in much the same way. He became Harlan's, for a while, go-to guy for law enforcement and criminal justice questions. And on many occasions on the phone, we would just hear him scream, you know, "Susan, get that fucking piece of paper." So it was just nice for us to be a part of his life for a very short period of time. And we miss him very much. And so I'm sad that stores like the Mystery and Imagination Bookshop are not there anymore, but it is good that we're continuing his legacy online and in print, hopefully, for years to come. Thank you.
Harlan Ellison was a friend of my mother's, and I met him when I was 12 years old in 1955. And the one thing I have not heard covered here at all really was his incredible generosity. Years ago, we were whining about living in Cleveland, and he said, "Well, why don't you just move out and you can stay in my house for as long as you need while you hunt for work, and I'll move in with my girlfriend." I know of an anecdote in which he handed his autograph to someone, and what it was a blank check with the clear invitation to use it if it was needed. This man was the most generous person I've ever met, and I really think that needs to be shared as well.
Thank you, Maggie. That was Maggie Thompson, who has contributed and sort of reminds me that this should probably become an annual affair, because I think Maggie could share stories about Harlan all day, as could so many others. So maybe we should do this again next year.
I worked with Harlan on the video game adaptation of the I Am a Math and a Scream in the 1990s. And I was a big Harlan fan beforehand, so I was fully prepared when I went to his house and for the very first time, and he did nothing but hurl insults at me. And when I showed him the first page of dialogue I'd written for the game, he looked at it and said, "Who wrote this shit?" And even worse, it reads like it was written by a television producer. And I said, "Well, I did." And then he got very embarrassed and frustrated and started apologizing for the insult. And as difficult personality that he could be, he really did care about people. And I remember when he came for the audio recording sessions we did for the game, he was very agitated and asked why. And he said, well, he yelled at Susan that morning, and he was feeling bad about it. And I told him, she's loved you all these years, she'll love you when you come home. And that seemed to make him feel a little bit better. But when at the Game Developers Conference, when the game won an award for Best Game Adapted from Linear Media, I called him up on the phone, and I said, "Harlan, you won." And he said, "We won?" So he was very good at giving back praise to other people. And when the game also won an award from a game magazine, and they forgot to mention my name, he went and wrote them a very nice letter explaining my contributions to the game. And it was absolutely a wonderful experience working with him, but my biggest regret is I didn't maintain a friendship with him afterwards.
Great, thank you. This will be the last comment, and then I want to give Josh the final words. That Josh has a great story.
A quick question. Has anybody read Last Dangerous Visions? I've always wanted to read it.
It's correct.
No, not all of it.
Oh, yeah.
There's somewhere.
Josh?
Have you read it?
Have I read it?
Yeah.
I have not read it. And you'll be the second people to read it, I promise.
Can I get called out?
Yeah, Josh will bring it home, and then we'll close out. So again, thank you for your patience.
So we're talking about your thing?
Yeah.
So a couple months ago, I got an email from Chris, who I've met many times at Harlan's and Susan's, saying they were going to, do you want to know what that would be? Sure, they're bringing back Dream Corridor. And would I be interested in adapting one of Harlan's stories? And of course I would. And I started thinking about it. And I think whatever it is that drove me down this path of this particular project is something that I shared with Harlan. I didn't want to just do a Harlan Ellison story. I wanted to do something because there have been a lot of great comic adaptations of his work. And I wanted to do something that somebody hadn't done. So I mentioned to Chris that I didn't want to do a story. I wanted to find one of his nonfiction pieces or his introductions or, just one of those things. Because, as a kid, my wife pointed something out to me the other day that I have been in a relationship with Harlan since I was 14 years old. It just changed its form over the years. And, like a lot of people here, I would walk into a new bookstore when I was in a new town or just anywhere and always go to the science fiction section because that's where they kept him, even if he wasn't science fiction. And I'd look for the new Harlan book. And if there was one there, not only would I get some new stories, but I get to spend some time with my friend. You get to hear what he was thinking, what he was going through, what he was dealing with. And I thought it would be fun to adapt one of those, or something from the glass tin, or something that... And I went through in the last 4 or 5 months, I've read more Harlan than I've read in many, many years, because when you know him, you don't have to pick up a book to find out what Harlan thinks about something, and just call him up and go, hey, asshole, what do you think about this? And I was reading a lot of his nonfiction, and I was hitting a wall. There's one called Valerie, but it's not right to do it for a lot of reasons, some of you know. And I was like, they were not presenting themselves the way I wanted them to. Nothing was jumping out. I was getting close to giving up. And the last time I saw Harlan, it was his birthday. And I went up to the house, Nancy and I did, and we had a long conversation, our usual wonderful visit. But this son of a bitch had outed me to Harlan. And somewhere in the afternoon, Harlan goes, I talked to Chris Weil, it's a stupid fucking idea you're gonna do on my introduction. Get out, that's ridiculous. And I was like, well, what are one of your essays? That's a terrible idea, that'll never work. And I had been about to give up. So now, obviously, I cannot give up. And I dug even deeper, and I called friends. I called Eric, it was like, there's something, there's so many of these damn things, I can devote my life to reading Harlan's introductions and nonfiction. And finally I found it, and I had a revelation, and I will tell you about the last conversation I had with Harlan. I called him, I was sitting out on my porch. There's actually a lovely picture that you ran a few minutes ago that my mother took of Harlan on my porch listening to jazz, that one there. That's the view from my porch. And I called up Harlan, and he was not in a great mood. Like, what do you want? Make it quick. And I said, I'm gonna cheer you up with just 3 words. He goes, what are you gonna do? I said, shut up. You were right. He goes, oh. Go on. And I said, you were right. It's a stupid idea. I'm not gonna do one of your introductions or your nonfiction pieces. I said, I'm gonna do Along the Scenic Route. I said, but I was right too, because there's one that's perfect. And I really want to do it. And I said, here's the problem with doing it. If I did this, it would be phenomenal. And you would love it. You would laugh like a fucking hyena. But pretty much everybody else in the world would think I am a ghoul for doing it. He goes, what are you talking about? Like the early 70s, I think, or maybe it's even earlier, because it opens with him at a party with Mama Cass. So he wrote an essay called, now I'm going to flip it, but I think it's called How I Died. And it is just a series of sort of thoughts of Harlan, thinking of various ways he might go out. 1978, Harlan Ellison is beaten to death by a bunch of fans of President Spiro Agnew for a column he wrote in the LA Weekly, stuff like that. I was shocked there's nothing in there about Star Trek fans killing him for bad-mouthing Star Trek. And I said, what we do is we just get a different great artist to do each, I'll adapt each of these deaths, and we get a different great artist to do them. And he laughed like a fucking hyena. He thought that was hilarious. He was just like, it just seemed to brighten up his whole day. And he's like, yeah, you're right, you can't ever do that. And I realized, I talked to both Eric and Chris the day after he died, and I realized that I actually kind of have to now, and bookended, I think, with that story, and also with the fact that of all the ways this incredible, just human being, this entity who entered all of our lives and changed all of us, and just fought for everything and was always ready. There's a great line about, he's still working on Grudges from 1947. The notion that Harlan Ellison would die peacefully in his sleep next to the woman he loved was, nobody has earned that more, I think. And it was just sort of the beautiful capper to his story and into the goofy little thing I want to do. But that was my last conversation with Harlan, was him laughing at death.
And with that, thank you to all of you for attending this and sharing your own stories. Thank you to all the panelists for your stories, and most importantly and especially, thank you. I'm bookending it. Thank you so much to Harlan and to Susan for sharing so much of your lives with us. We'll see you next year. Thank you.
Where's my drawing? Where's my drawing? That's literally the only reason I did this.
That I don't know. It's not my book.